Well, good evening again for another round of Matthew 13. We've talked a little bit about what families bring to this, and last week I talked about how to renew and keep that soil growing and moving forward. And today we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the seed. So just a reminder, this whole psalm, or this whole parable begins with Jesus sitting down by the seaside. And he told that a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, seeds fell on the path, seeds fell on rocky ground, seeds fell, seeds sown. So we're going to talk about the importance of seed a little bit tonight. And that is because I must say that we are in a seed crisis. And that is because 90% of the crop varieties that we have grown in about 100 years are all gone. All those crops that were heritage crops from the beginning of 100 years ago have now gone away. You see, every society, as they go through and try to cultivate their existence, we've always started as a hunter and gather society. As we went around and found different lands to populate, and we always were drawn to what is grown in those fields all around. And we often would find the tallest and most hardy plants, take those seeds from that plant and pass it down from generation to generation to generation, family to family to family. And in that seed is usually the culmination of an entire heritage of people. But right now, between 60,000 and 100,000 plant species are in danger of extinction, which to me is an alarming number. And that's why things like these were created. This is what is called a doomsday vault, or a Noah's Ark vault. Now, in these vaults house seeds from all over the world. Heritage seeds that countries have grown and grown and grown, and they go to this place in case some catastrophe happens, that there is still seed that can represent the heritage of a place. To put that in another perspective, in Syria, right now there is the civil war going on between factions. Crops are being decimated there now because of fighting in fields and because farmers themselves have gone to war. So they've actually contacted this site to get more of their seeds that have been cultivated throughout centuries. So when this warring is finally over, they can replant what their culture values that comes out of the ground of their civilization. Now, this place is one of the most secure places in the world. There's no fault lines around it. It is actually a place where nobody except Pastor Kai, because he's of Norwegian blood, wants to go. That little red circle up there is where the Slavblard, I practiced and everything. That's where that actually is located. It is one of the most secure locations, and every country that puts seeds in maintains ownership of those seeds. So at any time something bad happens, they have access to those seeds at all times. Now, to put a little bit more perspective onto this, here in our country, 94% of all soybeans grown and 88% of all corn grown is actually genetically modified and usually of one type of soy or corn seed. So someone is telling us what our soy should taste like and what our corn should taste like. But to go take that even further, we have lost 93% of the variety of food that we grow from seed. We went from 497 varieties of lettuce to just 36. We went from 288 varieties of beets to 17. We went from 307 varieties of sweet corn to 12. And the one most dear to my heart is the tomato has lost 80% of its diversity. So when I think about this 80%, now when you go to the store and you look at a tomato, that bland red circle, and you bite into that bland red circle, you're like, tomatoes, they're great. It's because we have modified those tomatoes and took all of the juices out. Everything that makes that a tomato, that houses that seed, we've kind of bred away so we can cut that tomato and put it on a hamburger. And so there's no longer varieties that are good for stewing, varieties that are great for other points to cook with, because someone has said, this tomato is a winner because I can ship it, it's not going to bruise, and it's going to be beautiful. So, hopefully at this point, you're saying, so what? So what? Why are you standing here talking about seeds and the lack of variety? So I'm going to take us back into that parable right now. This is Matthew 13. I want to start in verse 10. So the disciples came and asked Jesus, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" And he answered, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. But to them it has not been given, for those who have more will be given, and to those who have abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. The reason I speak to them in parables is that seeing they do not perceive, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand. With them indeed is the fulfilled in the prophecy of Isaiah that says, You will indeed listen, but never understand. You will indeed look, but never perceive. For this is the people's heart that has grown dull, and their ears of hard of hearing, and they have shut their eyes, so they might not look with their eyes, and listen with their ears, and understand with their hearts. But they will turn, and I will heal them." Besides proving the fact that I should wear my glasses more often, what Jesus is saying here is that our society has looked at all this Jesus stuff, and someone else has taken the narrative of what Christianity means. Christianity has to mean a certain party, Christianity has to mean a certain thing, and to be a Christian you have to believe this exact thing, which I don't necessarily agree with. Oh, that's not what I was saying. Because we save these seeds for very particular reasons. So I want to tell you why we save seeds. The first one is for seed security. Because we want to know exactly where our seeds and where our food comes from. Each of you has a seed of Christ inside of you. And all that seed comes from a different place in each of us. That story that is grafted on your heart is different for all of us. But we come together in community to hear what that Christ is for you. There's a security together in Christ. Second, we collect seeds to maintain variety. If I walk around to each of you and ask you who Jesus is for you, you're going to give me a remarkably different answer. Because at some point, Jesus impacted your life in a very specific way that has brought you to this community this night. And because of that awesome variety that God has put in our hearts, we share that love of Christ amongst all of us. And that makes our spirits grow even deeper and further than we could ever fathom. 3, we keep seeds because of regional adaptation. Different things grow well in different places. I, as a gardener, know kind of what grows well here in Ohio, here in my backyard. And we as Lutherans have a shared story of where our faith comes from and what our faith grew out of. And that grace that abides underneath all of our stories, that love of God that is deeply rooted in our hearts and our spirits is always available for us to root ourselves into that loving community that we have. Lutheranism is a different flavor everywhere you go. And our flavor here at Peace is distinct. If it wouldn't be, we wouldn't call ourselves a specific name. We'd just be Lutheran Church A or B. But we are Peace Lutheran Church, and we operate out of that love of Christ that is shown throughout all of us. 4, we save seeds because of consistent quality. That story that we talked about, none of those stories of Christ are wrong. Every story of Christ that is in your heart is perfect for our community. Every story of Christ that is on your heart shows a different aspect of love and grace that we all live into. And it's that consistent quality that we find amongst each other, that we are developed for a community, that we grow in our faith together. And finally, we collect seeds to preserve our heritage and diversity. Sometimes we look around and we don't think that we have a diverse community. But each of us have a different background, come from a different story in a different place. My family, my father's side of the family, is not religious whatsoever, but one thing would bring them together, and that was my grandmother. We would always have meals together. This family who loved to yell at each other, loved to fight and scream, blame and point, would magically come together around that table of love. And when my grandmother passed away, my father's family does not get together any longer. She was that glue that held all that together. She preserved that heritage. Because when I'm talking about heritage seeds, is that you come from your family. You bring your family with you when you come into these doors. You leave with your family, with the love and support of this family as you go out and encounter the other. We are from heirloom seed that cannot be reproduced by someone telling you what the faith is. We can read the Bible. We can read the Bible daily. We can read the Bible hourly. We can listen to sermons that happen here all over the place. But until we go out and experience that love that Christ created us for, that community that Christ created us in, we sometimes miss what it is to be Christians and to be loving in our communities together. Our heirloom seed of Christ is a different variety for each of us, but it grows such awesome fruit that we might never know about, and fruit that you will never know about. There are people that you have touched that you do not know, but that have blossomed to something amazing. Christ planted those seeds in our hearts to spread amongst all of us. So what I'm going to leave you with tonight is to think about what we're going to do with that seed that Christ has planted in us. What is that story that keeps you coming back? What is that narrative that draws Christ to you and draws you together here? So after service, I brought my own seed library. Some of these are open-air pollinated seeds that I have. If you'd like to join me back there, I would gladly give you some of my seeds that hopefully your garden or your flower bed will spurt with something new that you wouldn't know about. I have some cantaloupe that actually grew out of my compost pile, which will probably be amazing. We don't know what fruit God has. So as we move on this night, contemplate what that story is and how that story can be used for you as you grow in your faith, regardless of age. Christ with open hands, with open arms, and that fertile soil. So what is that story that you'd like to share?